After Russia's chief of nuclear, biological and chemical protection troops, Lieutenant General Igor Kirillov, was killed in an electric scooter blast in Moscow, investigators have said that Russia has detained suspects related to the killing. A source in the Security Service of Ukraine claimed the killing of the top commander, Deputy Chairman of Russia's Security Council and former Russian President Dmitry Medvedev have said that Ukraine has to face imminent revenge for the killing.
Our enemies have already rushed to publish information about their involvement. In any case, the investigators must find the killers in Russia. And we must do everything to destroy the patrons who are in Kyiv. This is the military political leadership of Ukraine.
An Uzbek national has been arrested in connection with the attack. Kirillov was killed outside an apartment building along with his assistant. 54-year-old Igor was the head of the Russian Armed Forces Radiation, Chemical and Biological Defense Troops. He started his career in the armed forces of the USSR from 1987. From 1991 to 1994, he served as a platoon commander. From 1995, he held positions like company commander to brigade commander of Separate Radiation, Chemical and Biological Protection Brigade. From 2005 to 2007, he studied at the Nuclear, Biological and Chemical Protection Military Academy. From 2009, he served in various positions at Nuclear, Biological and Chemical Protection Troops. In September 2014, Kirillov was appointed head of the Timoshenko Nuclear, Biological and Chemical Protection Military Academy. In April 2017, Kirillov became the head of the Nuclear, Biological and Chemical Protection Troops of the Armed Forces of the Russian Federation. The organization that Kirillov headed performed complex tasks of protecting troops and the population, requiring the use of special equipment. The body consists of units and divisions for detecting nuclear explosions, radiation and chemical reconnaissance, special processing, aerosol countermeasures, and many more. In the Ukraine war, Kirillov became best known for his role in the alleged use of chemical weapons by Russia. Last week, Ukraine accused Kirillov of using banned chemical weapons to target Kiev. The UK placed sanctions on Kirillov for using riot control agents and multiple reports of the use of toxic choking agents in Ukraine. Raphael Cohen is the director at Strategy and Doctrine Program, RAND's Project Air Force. He's now joining us on this program. Mr. Cohen, thank you very much for making time and welcome. Russia has indicated it might avenge the general's assassination. How do you think Russia will do that? And do you think the general's killing could further stoke more aggression towards Ukraine, especially now that the winters have hit?
First off, thank you so much for having me on. So how Russia will retaliate, I mean, I think they have several different options at their disposal. What we've seen Russia do in the past is usually conduct some sort of aerial bombardment. Russia's already had a fairly aggressive campaign to go after Ukrainian energy infrastructure, particularly now that the winter months are heading upon us, and in some sort of effort to try to freeze Ukraine into capitulation. Russia could also try more targeted measures as well, sort of a tit-for-tat targeting and like. Russia certainly had that capabilities. Now, whether or not this actually will change any of the real dynamics in the conflict, I don't really think so. I think we've passed the point where the killing of any one Russian general is going to dramatically alter the course of the conflict. Remember, Ukraine has successfully targeted multiple Russian generals in the past over the last almost 3 years of conflict. So I don't really think that this one assassination would actually sort of upend any of the major political dynamics thus far.
Mr. Cohen, in the past few weeks, there has been a sudden call by the West, especially Trump, to have some dialogue or better ways to end the 3-year conflict. Ukraine is seeking a diplomatic solution. The Kremlin is somewhat skeptical, but says it is open to talks. With this recent development of the killing of the general, how feasible is the road to peace in Ukraine?
No, I think the major sticking points of any sort of Russia-Ukraine peace deal are much the same as they've been since the very beginning of this conflict. Namely, Ukraine wants its territory back. It wants some sort of accountability for Russian war crimes, and it wants some sort of security guarantees that their country won't be invaded yet again by Russia in the future. Now, obviously, Russia disagrees with all three of those notions. And, I think there's going to be some pressure, particularly from the Trump administration, to try to push the Ukrainians into some sort of concessions here, particularly on the territory front. And hopefully the Trump administration will also put similar leverage over the Russians. Again, I don't think this one assassination is particularly going to upend those dynamics, but all three of those key sticking points, the two sides are very far apart on both of them, and that's going to be what sort of holds up any sort of peace deal in Ukraine.
Mr. Cohen, as we wind up this conversation, very quickly, how do you see the future of this war in the coming days? Let's talk about days before we talk about months.
So I think what you're going to see is a continued Russian offensive. Russia's been making slow gains in the east of Ukraine, in the Donbas region. It's also been making gains inside Russia against that salient that Ukrainians took in Kursk. So I think those level of offensives are going to continue up. I think you will also see increased Russian bombardment of Ukraine, particularly via drones, missiles, and the like. Again, some of it they'll say is partially retaliation for this assassination. Part of this is what they were planning on doing anyhow. And I think that's going to be sort of the short term. I think longer term, particularly once the Trump administration comes into power, there's going to be a diplomatic effort here. Who knows how successful that's going to be in the end.
All right, we'll have to leave it there. I've been talking to Mr. Raphael Cohen. He's the Director at Strategy and Doctrine Program, runs Project Air Force. Mr. Cohen, thank you for your time and for talking to us today.
Thank you so much for having me on.